Welcome to the Silence the Impostor Monster podcast, where we discover how successful people with the same limiting beliefs that sometimes haunt you and me move forward and achieve their goals and dreams. I'm Lori Hammond. Most people I interview here are hypnotists like myself. One of the things you'll love most about this podcast is that even if you know nothing about hypnosis, you can use the aha moments you get here to skyrocket your own success. Today, I'm talking to Martin Hewlett, who hosts the Calming Anxiety podcast, which started as a small project for friends and past clients and has skyrocketed to 500,000 downloads in a few short months. Martin has overcome incredible hardships in his life and has found healing and forgiveness that allow him to create and live a beautiful, peaceful life, proving that the past does not have to predict the present or the future. Martin and I both want you to know, if he can do it, so can you. Especially if you model his mindsets and his perspective as you move forward and create your life with intention. Enjoy the show. Martin, thank you so much for being here. You and I spoke a few days ago, and as soon as I got on the phone with you, on the Zoom call with you, I knew that I wanted you on this podcast. You just have such a peaceful demeanor. Your program is called Calming Anxiety, yes?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I feel like you have that. Just, I don't consider myself an anxious person, but just speaking with you, I felt calmer. And you have such a remarkable story, so I wanted to share it with the listeners today.
Uh-huh. Um, well, yeah, I don't think it's remarkable because it's just my life. So I think everyone has the same sort of journey and experiences. But the more I delve into the Calming Anxiety podcast and then everything that's associated around it and see people's reactions, I realize that maybe I do have something particularly unique. And like yesterday, I had an article in our local website and magazine that came out about me. And all of my friends have said, because they took one quote, I said that I found something now that I'm really passionate about. And without fail, all my friends have come back and said, hang on a minute, you're passionate about everything. You don't do anything without committing 100%. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I do. I find things and I think if I'm to enjoy that and take part in it, there's only one way of doing it, and that's doing it 100%.
I love that.
Right. Yeah.
Will you talk to me a little bit about what brought you to creating your podcast? Kind of whatever you feel is relevant.
So I started a hypnotherapy practice in southwest England by the coast in Devon. And it's fairly rural here, so I was never going to make a big business out of it. And I also wanted to provide ongoing care for my clients. So I started a YouTube channel and I had 6 videos up there, well, audio sessions. And then I happened to be watching a Pat Flynn YouTube session, and he was going on about the importance of podcasting, how it's really growing. So I thought, oh, well, that makes more sense. That's audio. I then started the podcast, Calming Anxiety. And again, I was only producing it for my clients that had come to visit me, and also for some of my colleagues in the ambulance service. If they had a bad job, they could just listen to it. But the show has just escalated. It's taken off far bigger than I could ever have imagined. It's been running 6 months and we're almost breaking 500,000 downloads in that time.
Amazing.
And it just shows that people are really crying out for, I don't know, calming and relaxation and a moment to just step off the whole business about work and family and having to do things, and they just want a little bit of time out for their soul, and that's who I produce it for.
And will you say a little bit about the structure of your podcast? Because I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
unique, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's a blend of meditation and self-hypnosis. Um, and people said, "Oh, what have you based it on?" And I've based it on nothing. I've just thought, this works for me. I mean, when I record the podcasts, I just shut my eyes and talk into the mic. And I'm basically giving people a part of my mind for the next 10 to 30 minutes. If this is what I would like, so this is what I produce. So every podcast, they're unscripted and they're from the heart. It's just what I'm feeling at the time.
I love that. So when a person tunes into your podcast, they can expect to literally calm their anxiety as they listen.
That is it. The emails I get in for the podcast, they're just so touching. I mean, I share them with my other half, and there isn't a week now where we're not moved to tears by what people's story is. And it's just wonderful. And you just realize you're giving something, which is why I produced it. You know, I just wanted the help that my therapist 5 odd years ago gave me is what I'm now trying to do for as many people as possible.
Beautiful. Will you talk to me a little bit about what got you interested in hypnosis?
Well, that was a very pivotal day. I had suffered a very large sort of mental breakdown that was seen by my colleagues and my line managers at work. They saw it coming and I didn't. And I don't think people do when they're in it. My boss met me once. I was out on standby as a paramedic on an ambulance, but on my own. I was on a response car. And my boss turned up and said, "I'm taking you off the road. I want you to phone our staying well service." And I spoke to this woman over the phone and she was brilliant. I just opened out about everything that was going on. And I think it was 3 days later, they had put me in touch with a therapist called Kathy. And I walked in there, cynical as anything. I was suffering, or I'd always suffered from what's called dissociative identity disorder. So there was 3 of me inside my head. It's not schizophrenia. It's just what happens when children are abused. That's the way of coping. So I sat in there and this woman talked me down into a very calm state and talked me through this whole process. And the very narcissistic side of me was still at the back of my head going, "This is rubbish," but other words. And I got up, I walked out of that session, stopped in the middle of this car park, and suddenly that constant vitriolic diatribe of abuse that I was giving myself had gone. And it was wow. It's like someone had turned a switch of self-loathing and hate off. And my life started that day.
Oh, that is so amazing. I have
It really, I tell people now and they go, "No." And I go, and when people, if we're at work, those that knew me before that event, they go, "No, trust us, Martin changed, right? He's a different person." And I'm the person I've always wanted to be. Before, I was very good at upsetting everyone around me and pushing people away. And I think that's intrinsic within abused people. And so, getting back to your initial question, I needed to learn how this woman had done that. So I had 1.5 years training to become a hypnotherapist. I then did more study, and that is what I now teach. It's not just hypnosis, it is meditation as well. And that's why I produce the Calming Anxiety podcast. It now helps thousands of people daily. I mean, the show runs at 5,000 to 6,000 downloads a day. And those are people out there just thinking, "I need help." That's why I did it.
amazing. How do you think hypnosis and meditation are similar and different?
Ooh, meditation and self-hypnosis, they are difficult. I mean, I find them difficult. I can't do it without listening to someone else's guide. I think our brains are so wired for thought and excitement and stimuli. I remember my first hypnotherapy session when I was on my course. One of the women on the course hypnotized me into a state of utter, I think, zen, where I only had that moment of one singular thought, no distraction, and I was so aware I was in that moment of space. So self-hypnosis and meditation, to me, I think are exactly the same. But hypnotherapy and guided hypnosis are when you're helped because you cannot leave that sort of path which you're being guided on. But the process is exactly the same. It's still you opening the door to your subconscious and making those changes.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit more about having someone else guide you? Because this is something a few months ago I had a meeting through a networking event with a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he worked with 6 tables out in the open, and he would have 6 people on these tables, and he'd adjust this person, then go over to this person, and then this one, then come back to this one. And it was almost like this community environment.
Right.
And he said, I always have my chiropractor come in and adjust me in front of my clients so they can see that I'm doing the work as well. Because what kind of a hypocrite would I be if I told my clients, come in and get adjusted every so often, and I never did it myself? And this light bulb went on for me where I thought, I think so often as change workers, we think we need to show up having arrived. And there's like this fear of letting other people work with us. And that since that time, I've been so much more open to experiencing hypnosis. And I've learned when someone else is guiding me, it's so much more profound and so much easier than trying to do it in my own head.
I'm very unsuccessful at trying to do it for myself on my own. Mainly, I just fall asleep. I've got used to listening to my own podcasts. At first, I think we're all very uncomfortable when we hear our own voice. But my podcasts now, I can analyze them fairly disparatively. I can sit back and go, I need to change that. I need to change the timbre there. So if I listen to any, I'll record my own session, and that keeps me along that path. But I do I have 2 people who are hypnotherapists who I trust. And it's not that trust. I'm just in tune with who they are as friends. When I started on this journey, when I went off to learn hypnotherapy, my best friend in martial arts, who's also a 7th degree master, it was a light bulb moment for him. He lives at the other end of the country, and he thought, yes, I need to do this as well. So we qualified within a week of each other. Wow. In slightly different styles, but we've hypnotized each other and benefit from. It's just, so I trust Phil, who's an amazing hypnotherapist, and an even more amazing martial artist. You think I'm focused, that guy is super focused. He's world champion in Taekwondo, and just another amazing human being. You must connect with him. He's incredible as well.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit more. I have noticed that so many hypnotists also study some form of martial arts. And I wonder if you notice a correlation between the two and why that might be.
Well, I've been doing Taekwondo since I was 18, which is an awful long time now. So 38 years I've been doing my martial arts. And I just think it gives you focus. That is one thing. We touched on this briefly when we spoke earlier in the week. All my friends who are now masters in Taekwondo, they're very focused and mentally strong. And when they set themselves a task, they do it. And I think that lends itself to being a hypnotherapist. You become very empathic with your students and then clients. You learn to get the best out of people, regardless of their own skills, because everyone's totally unique. And I think as a good hypnotherapist sees that in their client. No one script fits everyone. And I do enjoy that challenge when I get someone in and you've relaxed them and you've put them down and you fractionalize them, but we know they're not under. So I then think, right, I'm going to have to basically wing this, but use my empathy with them. And I'll then bring them out and talk to them and then do a snap induction when they're not expecting it. And that's how martial arts instructors are. You'll get someone in and you'll just intuitively know, how can I make this student understand this concept? And there's so many different ways to teach one thing, but you've just got to find the way. And a good hypnotherapist does that. They can understand their patient in front of them.
I love that. And I had my kids in karate when they were little, so that's like my only exposure is sitting watching them in karate and learning I think they were called katas. And what I wonder also, in addition to what you're saying, and I think this kind of lines up with what you're saying, when you're in this martial arts setting, you have to be really attuned to what your opponent partner is doing. And there's this element of what I was taught is called calibration, where you're always looking for those trance indicators. You're noticing what's happening. And I think that's one of the key points in doing effective change work is noticing how it's going in. And so with that martial arts, there's also a form of presence. I think you have to be fully present to really practice efficiently.
You do. I mean, it's so complex. I mean, we could talk for days on this. But I think a successful hypnotherapist also is instinctively intuitive with other people. You know, you could walk into a room. I walk into the crew room in the ambulance station, and I kind of know which ones I could hypnotize really well. In fact, one of my crewmates, her previous husband was a doctor and a hypnotherapist. So she's really susceptible. And I was we were in the back of the ambulance. A patient was in chronic pain. And I was using just very subtle words to get rid of that pain. Now, I will never hypnotize a patient at work when I'm a paramedic, because that would be outside the realms of acceptability. But you can still talk in a very persuasive, calm voice. And I looked up and I'd hypnotized my crewmate. She was just so receptive to what I was saying and doing. It was fantastic. In fact, when I was doing my training, I was hypnotizing one of the women on the course. 2 other women were in watching to critique me, and I hypnotized all 3 of them at the same time.
I love that. Well, I would imagine anyone listening to this show right now, just listening to your cadence and the tone of your voice it's very hypnotic.
That's developed over the last year, especially with the podcasts. So, and another aside, I was on the phone recently to my ex-wife. She's my best friend. We get on really well. And she had phoned up with a question and a problem. And I started talking to her and I was like, right, I think we need to, she goes, don't you use that hypno voice on me. So, yes, it's a really good skill. I'll try not to hypnotize people.
It's okay.
Up the voice.
It's okay. Talk to me, if you're comfortable doing so, would you speak a little bit more about, you mentioned that you had experienced some childhood abuse, and you and I touched on this a little bit on our call, where I said so many people come in thinking if they have had this really a rough start, that it's almost like they feel like they're broken and their life has to be hard after that. Will you talk to me a little bit about your experience there?
Okay, so from the age of 4 onwards, I had a very tricky upbringing. And at the age of 14, I was put into secure psychiatric care, place for young people. And I spent 6 months in there being helped and showing that you could change. And the overriding message was, it doesn't matter how bad things were, when you leave here, you have a choice, and you can choose to wake up in the morning, accept that you've had a bum start in life, and then go out and live, or you can let it define you for the rest of your life. And I say that to my mental health patients when I'm a paramedic, and who turn around and say, you have no idea what it's like. And I said, no, I don't have any idea, but this is my background and this is what I've chosen to do. And it hits home. It really does. I'm really open and honest. I own where I was. I own the mistakes I've made. I don't make excuses for being a difficult person. And I wasn't an easy person from 17 to 50. I wasn't. But I'm making amends for it now. And as I broached with you previously, I had an older brother who never accepted that and went through life as a victim all his life, and was very, very awkward and never forgave. And I do, I think you have to forgive, because otherwise you can't move on, but it doesn't have to define you, and you can get better, and you don't have to let it ruin your life. You get one chance. Another big pivotal moment for me, early 2000, I worked out in Morocco for a while and saw real deprivation, real poverty. I mean, this family lived in a sewer, and I'd never seen anything like that. To the fact that on my last day there, I gave them the profits I'd made, because I was coming back to the UK. I'm coming back to a national health service, a welfare state, heating, care, safety, security. They had nothing. Luckily, when I landed and got to the airport, my wife appreciated what I'd done and said, that's just you. So yeah, difficult starts, so many of us have, but you don't have to let it define you. In fact, you can use it as a badge that I had this, but look where I've ended up now, right? And when I have clients that have had childhood PTSD, they know they're in safe hands with someone who absolutely believes they will change. Like the girl I briefly mentioned, who 3 or 4 years ago, I used to go to her on a regular basis. She was a heroin addict and an alcoholic. I think in total, we saved her life 3 times from massive drugs overdoses. And then last year, I saw her on another job, and I said, I recognize you. And she then said, yeah, no, I was this. I said, well, how on earth did you get clean? And she just turned around and goes, I woke up one morning and said, enough. I mean, just, if she can do it, and that's the lowest of the, anyone who's had any form of addiction, gambling, food, whatever, for an alcoholic heroin addict to go enough with no help. Wow. Just the most, I think the strongest human I've ever come across. I cannot wait to meet her again. I need to interview her if she'll agree.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing.
So we can all do it. We really can. It's just not making an excuse and saying, oh yeah, but I had this happen when I was younger. And I know it's hard, and it's hard, but you really can.
Absolutely. And I would just say to anyone who's listening to this right now, if you feel like you're the exception to the rule and there's a voice in your head saying, but this, your self-talk has so much to do with your ability to move forward. So right now, I just invite you to ask yourself, what if I can do this? What if I can step outside of my past and create my own future with intention?
Yeah. That is it in a nutshell, Laurie. Yeah. You need to stop saying, I can't, it defines me, and go, what if? And that will just change their entire life.
Yes. What if is such a powerful, I was explaining on a group hypnosis session I did the other day. I said, we want to go from saying, what if this scary thing happens? What if I mess up? What if, and move into a place of, what if What if I could do this and just do an amazing job? What if I could start making a difference in people's lives? And
Yeah.
it changes everything. Your unconscious mind is programmed to answer the questions you ask yourself. So if you ask, why do I always screw up? Why do I have this problem in my
Yeah.
life? It's going to find all this evidence to support it. And when you say, what if I can change? What if I can make a turn right now and start moving in a new direction? You're going to
Yeah.
find evidence for that as well.
It it changes people, and we see every day.
Yeah.
We really do.
Martin, can you remember
Yeah.
when you took your first hypnotherapy client, when you first started doing this, what that was like?
What? How nervous I was? What?
Yeah.
How sweaty my palms were?
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, yes, and they didn't know they were my first client, and I phoned up my original course tutor and said, right, I've got a client coming around. One word of advice. He said, just act professional, right? And I thought, yeah, it was that easy. They don't know, right? And they are paying me to help them. And I've been helping people all my life. It just is the way I am. And it was as soon as they sat down and I had started, I'm on a roll, And again, I didn't script it. I didn't have any notes because I thought otherwise I've done it once where I thought I need to read this script for a very delicate client. But I read it beforehand because I know when I'm reading, and I think a patient can tell that as well.
Yeah.
Was like to look at the rise and fall of the chest, and I alter the timbre of my voice as they exhale. It really takes their mind down so deeply.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still remember the first person, and I have the recording of it.
Oh, that's awesome. And this goes back to what we were saying about, in martial arts, how there's that presence that you're just
Yeah.
there in the moment. And I think
Yes.
so often when people are first starting, they're doing the what if and, worrying about, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't know what to do in the moment? And I think when we're just fully present, and even when we imagine that person transformed and really believe in their ability to rewrite their future, that
Yeah.
comes across.
Oh, it does. I mean, after a first few sessions, and you just see the incredible change. But it's not us, is it? It's the client. It's
Yes.
always the client,
Yes.
right? We and this is what gets me about us as hypnotherapists. All right, if we can make people change, but they're changing themselves, surely this should be in the education system. It would empower the entire population to achieve so much more.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful to do, but it's always the client that does the change.
So when you think about your education, your hypnotherapy
Yeah.
education, what do you know now that you only could have learned by actually working with clients that you didn't know when you graduated?
Um, the only thing I now know is that I'm really good at doing it. I don't mean that in a real sort of full of pride, narcissistic way. I'm just lucky that I've become a hypnotherapist. It's something I should have done years ago because it takes in all of the skills that I do have and abilities. And the one thing I didn't realize is just how effective I would be, or how effective hypnotherapy would be. And I've had clients aged from 14 upwards, and especially the 14-year-old does sport, right? There was nothing wrong. He just wanted to be more focused in his sport. He does boxing, and he's won everything since. But he now believes in himself. But the other changes is his schoolwork and his presence and the respect that he gets because he now believes people see that he believes, and his confidence has grown. And his
Wow.
parents send him back all the time. I mean, he loves it. And it's an honor to, because when he wins the Olympics in 12 years' time, I hope he does a shout out and goes, "This is for my hypnotherapist."
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
What what do you think about, all the events of your life or who you are as a person
Mm.
has set you up to be in a place where you feel the confidence or the drive or the passion to continue to move forward?
Who? Oh. Um, I think it's a combination of the friends that I do have. I have a small circle. I'm not a big social person. I don't do pubs or big social events. Mainly, I've always just done martial arts. And although up until 5 years ago, I never believed in myself, my close friends always did. They always said, "But you've achieved this and this and this." And I forget about the achievements I've done because to me, they're just things that I wanted to try. But I have succeeded at everything I put my mind to because when I left home, my mum said, "Never accept no."
Mm.
And that's the only rule I took. So I never thought I couldn't do things. So with martial arts, I got to the top of that. And I wasn't natural or gifted. I'm just very hard working at it. In the jobs that I've done, although my favorite job has always been, I was a house husband and I put everything into that. I loved it. And now I'm doing it again. So it's just wonderful. And then in the other sport I did, so I took up powerlifting because when you get to 7th degree in Taekwondo, you can no longer compete. And I like to compete. So I took up a new sport and I'd always been fairly skinny. And I know you saw the photo of me when I was big, but I was really skinny before the other photo you saw. So I took up powerlifting and put everything into that. And when I say everything, I mean I ate. For the first time ever, I could just eat and eat and eat and train. So I remember when I got married, I was 9.5 stone, and I went up to 15 stone. Big. And not fat, just big. And then 2 years ago, got the world record for powerlifting for my age.
Amazing.
And then won the world championships as well, and did nothing with it. Everyone goes, "Where's your medal?" Oh, I don't care. I just wanted to know if I could do it, and now I need a new goal. So
I love
yeah.
that. And I think that intrinsic motivation is so much more powerful than the external, extrinsic motivation. When you're doing it for you, it makes all the
Yeah,
difference. And that's something no one can ever take. If that medal
no,
gets lost or gets broken, you still have it inside.
it is a massive transformation of what you can do, and that transformation was done with hypnotherapy.
That's amazing.
It was in the middle of my training course, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So you touched on the importance of how your circle of friends has had a big impact on you,
Yeah.
and even in preparation, like in preparation for this interview, I was thinking this morning about how you and I both have been really influenced by Pat Flynn and have
Mm,
listened to a lot of podcasts. And I've heard it said, I think I originally heard this from Tim Ferriss, which is my favorite podcast,
yeah.
saying that you become like the five people you spend the most time with. And I
Yes.
heard this years ago, and I didn't really have a strong friend circle of people to nourish me. And so I started listening to those podcasts every time I was in my car, when I was going to work, when I was coming home from work, when I was getting ready in the morning. And that starts to get in your head. You really, they start to influence you, and it's almost like you're eavesdropping on these conversations, and our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something that we are in the middle of and something we're imagining. So I feel
Yeah.
like when we're in those podcasts, it's like these are becoming our circle, our five people. So, for
Absolutely.
anyone who's feeling, maybe you're listening to Martin and thinking, I don't have this background in martial arts. I could never do what he's doing. I really believe when you start to just immerse yourself in those kinds of thought processes and mentalities, it gets in there. We've learned everything we do by modeling someone else. If you feel insecure and insignificant, it's because someone has taught you to feel that way. And you can start to immerse yourself in some positive content. And there's so much out there, and it's gonna change who you are. You, you're
Absolutely.
influenced by what you absorb.
You are. I mean, um, one of the old phrases was, surround yourself with the people who are the best. So in martial arts, I aspire to be like my friend Phil, who's been 4 times world champion, runs the most successful martial arts schools around, and is respected. In powerlifting, my coach has been world champion, world powerlifter, world record holder, and he's a huge guy. So he trained me. And that's what I do, and I do another martial art with a guy who's just the world's best. And you need to surround yourself with people and will lift you up. And that's what I say when I'm a paramedic to people who want to get clean. I say, well, if you really want to do that, you have to leave those friends behind because they don't want you to move on. You need to surround yourself with a new group that will lift you up, not drag you down. And it's difficult, I know, if you're not there now. But for anyone listening and thinking, oh, that's all right for Laurie to say and Martin to say, but we weren't like this. I was down right at the bottom. At the age of 21, I moved from abroad back to England, and I was homeless. I lived in a tent on a flat roof above a church. I had nowhere to live. I had no money. All right. So when I get people saying you don't know what it's like being homeless, yes, I do. I've been there. All right. And I've dragged myself out. And no, it's not easy, but nothing worth having, which is of value, is easy. Right? You need to work for it. And I think once people get over that and think, actually, he's right, but what is work? It's a desire to do something that is a little bit tricky at the moment, but the rewards are phenomenal. So they need to drag themselves up. And anyone can do it. Absolutely anyone.
I 100% agree. I recently was telling someone that, I have a lot of people come to me and say, I want to do what you're doing, but I don't know where to start, or I don't feel like I'm ready, or I don't feel like I've done enough self-work for myself. And just a side note, self-work is an ongoing process. But they said, I just want it to be easy. I just want to set this up and have it be easy. And I think, okay, you need to go back to your day job because this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I have given birth to 3 kids. I've gone through a really painful divorce. I've been homeless as well. And building this business up is by far the hardest thing that I have ever done. And I wouldn't trade a second. This is just the most rewarding thing when one person comes to you and says, "You changed my life. I felt this way and now I'm in the right place." It's so worth it. And I don't think that it would be as meaningful if it wasn't for the hard work. If we just had it handed to us, we wouldn't appreciate it as much.
No, we wouldn't. It's, I mean, I'd like to share some of the emails, but I'm sure you get letters like this. And when you put that effort, the training to do what we do, and you think, oh, I'm going to be a successful hypnotherapist. And then you realize, actually, I've now got to learn business marketing, social networking, and the list goes on. I'm working really hard to make the show and the Calming Anxiety brand something that can stand on its own 2 feet, so that I can put more effort into it and help more people. But it's not easy. That passive income thing that everyone puts around, no, it doesn't exist. I think people who earn a very good living from passive income must have been the hardest working people ever to find out how to generate that. But everyone can do it. They just need to work on it.
I completely agree. And it does take a while. So I'm 3 years into my business and I have just been working so hard, and I'm just now getting to a place where I'm monetizing and where things are starting to flow in, but it's because I have been working hard, and a lot of that has been getting over that imposter voice in my head that says, oh, you're never going to be as good as so and so. What if I screw up? What if I say the wrong thing? being afraid to put myself out there on social media, making a video and thinking this is ridiculous, and then just hitting send anyway. It's,
But
yeah.
but that's it, isn't it? We all have that negative voice. And it's not until you've gone past that barrier. You see, when I first met you, I didn't know you'd only been doing, well, I think I saw you about a year ago on Facebook. And to me, you're a voice of authority because you're out there talking about it. And then that gives you presence and weight to your experience. But you don't realize that. But I now realize that people see my podcast show. And I had a friend who's in Thailand this morning. He said, I looked you up again. You're number one. You're trending at number one. And I'm like, am I? Oh, that's nice. But we don't see it because we still think, you know, you're still little Laurie and I'm little Martin with all my insecurities. And I'm sure all those other people that we view as our peers have just as many insecurities. And subsequently, anyone who feels they're at the bottom thinking we've got it all, no, we're all the same, the same amount of chances. No one handed this to me on a plate, and no one handed your success to you that you're building. You've worked for it, right? And I just think, and when people go, oh, I'm in my 30s and 40s, well, I didn't start hypnotherapy until I was 51, 52, all right? And I'm now thinking, I've got a 30-year career ahead of me again.
Yes.
That's brilliant, right? I don't have to worry anymore. I never think I want to retire. And my old father-in-law, he was very successful in business. I mean, he was the father I always wanted. He was liked by everyone, and he was phenomenally gifted at business. And he retired at 50 and did nothing. I'm like, what? I mean, okay, I say nothing. He had a place in Florida and a place in the south of France and lovely 4 acres on a lovely forest in southeast England with a swimming pool and tennis courts and horses. But, you know, I don't wish to retire. I wish to do this. I wish to empower other people, set them free from whatever's happened and just be happy. I know that might sound really crass or just bland, but happiness, it's not just a goal, it's a way of being, isn't it? I mean, you always smile, right? Everything about you. My first videos, my other half said, could you not look so sad? I go, I'm not, I've just got resting sad face. And then my first videos, everyone said, I know you're not into drugs, but what the hell were you taking when you did that video? Right? So I'll try and find one of my videos and I'm bouncing all over the place. And I now try just to talk. So,
Yeah, it's just about finding that happy medium. This is so awesome. Is there anything you can think else that you would like me to ask you or that you'd like to address that we haven't already talked
about? No, I mean, my journey has been one of what some people say is sad and traumatic, but I made amends with it. And then, you know, let's cut to the chase. My father was the awkward person when I was a child. There's the problem. When he died, he was a career officer in the army, and he was in bomb disposal. And it's only after he passed away that I then found out he was in the 8th Army, Desert Rats, fought in Italy because he had me very late on in life. And then he went into bomb disposal, which, let's face it, has to be the most dangerous job in the world. During his career doing that, he lost a few close colleagues and friends. And I view it now that he was suffering from PTSD. Very difficult person. And I can forgive that quite happily. So I have no bad feelings towards what happened. And also, I was given this chance of life. I really do think life is so, I mean, infinitely miraculous that we're here. And not just that we're here, but that I'm here. The chances of me and you, my thought process And I love this. Every day I'm trying to teach my new family, the stepkids, mindfulness, to stop and look. And as you walk past a bush, you might see a small flower, and just appreciate that flower right there and then. Like when you're in the car and you're in a traffic jam and people be so angry and frustrated, look over at the hard shoulder and see a weed growing there with maybe a yellow flower and think, that's life. That's just growing there, completely oblivious to everything else that's going on. And just be mindful right now of this moment, that you have every opportunity in life to succeed if you choose to. If you just say, what if? Wouldn't that be brilliant? So yeah, that's what I'd like to pass on. And that's what I do with my shows. And that's what we see as therapists, because we take someone who's obviously struggling and we empower them to change themselves. But as long as we don't tell them that they did all the hard work, otherwise clients would be coming to us and charging us for their time. Oh dear,
Yeah.
I've opened a can of worms there, haven't I?
Well, I feel the same way. So often people will come to me and tell me, "Thank you, you changed my life." And I do tend, I accept the compliment,
Mm,
but at the same time, I do want them to know that this was just, I'm just really good at unlocking that part of you that already knows the things you don't know,
yeah,
and helping you access this. And that way, if for any reason I'm ever inaccessible to them, they know that they have that inside them.
yeah. That
Yeah.
that is it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Um, Although we would like them to come back maybe
Yes.
once a year,
Yes.
just for a
Or
top up.
if we help them stop smoking, then they come in for this next thing, this next thing.
Yeah,
It's just that what you and I were talking about at the beginning, where we like to still continue to see people that guide us to unlock our inner
yes,
resources. We can always be there for those
yeah.
clients on an ongoing basis in the same way.
I have a client, it just gets me, this one. He came to me to stop smoking. So I saw him, we had a session. And then 3 months later, he phoned me up. He said, hi, can I come back for another session? I said, what for? He goes, stop smoking. I said, well, not being rude or anything, but I obviously didn't work. He goes, oh no, you're the best. I've seen so many hypnotherapists. And now I know that I can come to you, you'll stop me. But if I want to start again, you'll stop me again. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And he feels really happy about that. So he can go for months on end without smoking, know that when he really wants one, he can have one, and then he'll come back and have another session.
Interesting. I love that.
It's just like, yeah, if that's what you want. But I could put a stop to that as well. No, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So he's happy.
And I
I
think
give
there,
him what he needs.
I love that. I think there's such a gift in meeting the client where they are instead of imposing our paradigm on them, allowing them to say, this is my goal, and meeting inside of it. And I think so many of us struggle to want to say, well, but I want this for you. And I
Yeah,
feel like we're serving them best if we really give them what it is that they're seeking. And a lot of times we'll find things underneath that when those clear up, it
yeah.
automatically fixes this problem. But yeah, that's beautiful.
I do like those more social construct jobs where people say, I'm not sleeping. You never treat them for the sleep problem, do you? You always end up uncovering the reason why they're not sleeping.
Yes. Yes.
And I always tell them that. I said, this isn't about sleep. We will find out what it's about.
Yes.
And generally on the second session, the light bulb goes on. They go, got it. Okay, fine.
I
And
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so then they can go off.
Yeah. Martin, this has been
Yeah.
so awesome. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
much. I love that you just for sharing your gentle voice and your calm with
Oh,
us.
thank you.
I would love to where if I'm going to edit that stumbling part out.
No, don't, because that's you, isn't it? And
It
that's why
is.
people listen to you,
Yeah.
because you are natural, right? It's not, we haven't scripted any of this. We've
Right.
just talked, and people go to you and are attracted to you and your style because you're genuine. You know,
Well, thank you. Maybe I will leave it in. Um you said something earlier too that I just want to touch on really quick. I feel bad saying, okay, we're wrapping it up and then going forward, but You were talking about listening to your recordings back and seeing ways that you can change, ways that you
Yeah,
can tweak things. You were talking about making video and realizing you were too flat at first and then maybe
yeah,
too animated later. And I just want to say I've done the same thing where the very first video I ever made, I was trying to be really animated and I thought that I was being enthusiastic and I realized my voice was monotone, my I looked like a deer in the headlights. And so I learned and I started modeling people who make video well. I would actually
yeah,
watch their video and mirror them as they were speaking in body language and voice tonality, and it changed so much. But I think there's a tremendous value in being able to look at your so-called flaws, for lack of a better
mm,
word, look at where you are now and just assess with curiosity and then make some tweaks and changes and do better. But when we beat ourselves up over our so-called mistakes, it makes it so much harder to correct them because we get more of what we focus on. And if
yeah.
we're focusing on how we screwed up, it's going to drive our unconscious mind to present more screw ups for us.
Well, there's that, and then surely we just want to be ourselves, and we are who we are. So now I just do my bits to camera, and if people critique it, so be it. I had my first wonderful negative 1-star review on Apple last week. It was so biting. He came back and said, I think you've mistitled it. You gave me anxiety. And I'm like, I obviously didn't. You obviously either have an axe to grind. But as Pat Flynn says, this person's listened to your product and they've taken time to write a review. Be happy. So I was like, normally the old me would have fixated on that one negative review as opposed to all the good ones. And now I'm like, hey, I've got a stalker. Yay.
That's
Doesn't matter.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all, we have this meaning making machine up here, and we can decide
Yeah.
what those 1-star reviews mean. We can decide what a flub on camera means,
Mm,
and we can take it as a learning experience and just move forward.
yeah, I do. I mean, the emails for the show, I get people saying, oh, could you make them longer? And then I get people saying, could you make them a lot shorter? And what do? You can't please everyone. So this week they're all 5 minutes, and next week they'll all be half an hour. Because I do like to give. Although I have to say, today's show that I did is supposed to be a 5-minute one, but it's about 10 minutes. Because as I got to the end of the 5 minutes, I was recording it last night, and the bird song outside my window was phenomenal. So I said, I'm just going to let the mic record the bird song. So who's listening into today's podcast gets 5 minutes of evening bird song.
Oh, and is that
Yeah.
the mic you have there that you used for that?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Tell us just real quick for anyone listening what that mic is.
it's an Audio Technica 80 2020.
Okay.
So yes, it's got a nice soft sound, very
Yes, it
mellow.
does.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
do like it.
Yeah.
And it's going through what's that? A Xenix Q802 USB board. I'm not into gadgets, but I do like that because it's got flashing lights.
Yes, the flashing lights are nice. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how I started. I started actually my podcast with a £25 USB mic from Amazon. So if anyone's listening and wanting to start, doesn't matter what you've got, just record, because it's your voice and your story matters. People don't listen to podcasts and think, I wonder if that's a high Dolby or whatever. They just want to hear what you have to say.
Yes. Yeah. Deliver value.
Yeah.
Martin, this has
Cool.
been so amazing. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here, for sharing your gift, for helping to encourage people who may be on the fence about moving forward. I'm grateful
Oh,
for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day with that beautiful family of yours.
yeah, no, I will. When they come back, it's more swimming in the pool.
That's wonderful.
It sounds wonderful. I'm not rich. We live in a rented house, and the pool is one of those above ground things, but it was bigger than we thought it was going to be, and I can swim in it. So
I
it's
love that.
lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're enjoying your life and you're happy and you're following your passion, and that's what
I
truly matters.
I am happy. And for anyone who thinks they can't be, I spent 50 years not being happy. I mean, we all have moments of happiness, but I knew there was a problem. And when I discovered it and changed it, I then became me. And anyone can. Between me and you, I don't believe there's a person we couldn't help change the damage that they've had in the past.
I hope you loved this episode. Thank you for investing in yourself by listening. You can find links and learn more about Martin in the notes for today's show. Have an inspired day as you create your life on purpose.